In the heart of the state-of-the-art, at the dawn of the next stage in entertainment, you found No Proscenium.
You have indeed found No Proscenium, the voice of everything immersive. I'm your host, Noah Nelson. This week on the show, we chat with Amy Ashton, producer of La Jolla Playhouse's Without Walls Festival, which is coming up this month, running April 21st through the 24th at San Diego's Liberty Station. It's the longest-running theater festival of its kind here in the United States, and this marks the beginning of an annual cycle for the festival. Very excited to check in with Amy about some of the shows and just how the festival all comes together. That's coming up in just a bit. Then solo performer Siobhan O Lougjhlin, whose voice you just heard a second ago, will be here to chat about the upcoming remount of her piece, Every Day I'll Hope, which returns to LA this month. But first, want to give a shout out to our latest Patreon backer, Neither World. We're marching towards a couple of big milestones. We're at 379 patrons right now, so we're just 21 away from a big 400, and we're just $155 a month in monthly pledges away from hitting the halfway mark to what we call our fully sustained setup. So not too shabby, particularly in this day and age. So thank you all. And of course, we'll have the thanks for our sustaining backers towards the end of the show. And now, here's Kathryn with this week's headlines.
This is Kathryn Yu, executive editor of No Proscenium, and here's what's in your immersive headlines for April 1st. Well, file this under unexpected. Meta's social VR app Horizon Worlds now boasts a Wendy's? Starting April 2nd, the fast food chain will open its own Wendyverse, hosted right on Horizon Worlds. Judging from the trailer, the virtual world will boast a 3D rendition of a Wendy's location, a basketball court, an interactive t-shirt cannon, a fountain spewing what I can only hope is mustard, and other games to play with your friends. The Wendyverse announcement comes hot on the heels of McDonald's filing a series of patents, all related to a virtual McDonald's, where consumers can order and get real food delivered to their homes. McDonald's isn't the only one looking to bring quick service restaurants into the metaverse. Panera Bread has also filed patents for their Paneraverse, which would allow you to download virtual Panera dishes to be used in virtual worlds. In other VR news, starting this fall, Arizona State University will create a new graduate degree program centered on the creation of new narratives through emerging tech and virtual production. The brand new Center for Narrative and Emerging Media, NEM, will be housed in downtown Los Angeles in the newly renovated Harold Examiner building and led by none other than the godmother of VR herself, Noni de la Peña. Joining Noni de la Peña will also be Mary Matheson, a formerly UK-based XR director, as the first official employee of the NEM. The program is a collaborative effort between the Herberger Institute for Design and the Arts and the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. Applications for the new Masters in Narrative and Emerging Media will open this spring. And also in VR news, fans of The Underpresents are celebrating right now. The indie game studio behind the project, Tenderclaws, has announced that live performers will be returning to the celebrated virtual reality game. The current run is scheduled to begin April 1st and will last for a period of at least 2 months. In general, players can expect to serendipitously run into the Raptors in the game's multiplayer hub, mostly during afternoons and nights Pacific time. Full disclosure, Tenderclaws is a former employer of mine. And these have been your immersive headlines.
One of the highlights of any year here at No Proscenium is when we get to go down to San Diego and check out the Without Walls Festival. It is the festival of site-specific and responsive, and we'll get into all that later. Produced by the La Jolla Playhouse. Traditionally, it is a biannual festival, but it is shifting into an annual mode, and that is kicking off with this year's, I think, I hope I'm getting this right. I'll get corrected in a second if I'm wrong. We have Amy Ashton, who's a producer of the Without Walls Festival, with us, and it's coming up at the end of April, which I believe when this drops is this month. So it's right around the corner. Hey, Amy, how's it going?
Hi, it's going well. It's busy but good, and you are absolutely correct. We are coming back after the last festival. The last full festival was in 2019, and then this year will launch, and we will be back in 2023 and annually from there on.
Fantastic. Making up for lost time. You were brought in during the pandemic, and there was some pop-up WoW action happening. I know because I went down to check it out. But are you excited to be throwing your first full force Without Walls?
I excited is an understatement. I am so beyond excited and just been really dreaming of this moment since I did my first interview with the Playhouse, talking about the Without Walls Festival as something that I could be a part of. So that was 2019. So so yeah, no, it feels incredibly exciting, and I feel really lucky that we're where we are and barreling very quickly towards the festival.
Well, and let's get into some of the details of the festival because you've put together, it cannot have been easy. We'll get into that a little bit later, but you've put together a really incredible mix here of folks coming in internationally, local folks from elsewhere in the region, and we'll crack into like sort of your vision for the festival as a whole. But I do want to kind of drill in and start with some specifics first because it's my show and I can do that, and we'll go back and forth between. So the first one I want to ask you about is one of those international pieces. And I'm going to butcher this and you're going to correct me. It's going to be great. C'est par là. I just messed it up even worse than I did in the pre. Say this one for me. This is coming from France.
It's se parla, se parla.
C'est par là. As you can all tell, I did
Exact.
not take French in high school. I took Latin.
Which they define as it's not here, it's over there.
Okay. Not here, over there. Okay, very good. So, tell us about this piece because I'm curious about it,
Uh,
and them coming in from France.
yeah, this is a really unique piece, coming from Galmay, which is a French company, and Ju Young Lee, who is a Korean-born French citizen, who has created this piece. It's an installation in essence that becomes an interactive performance. So there is in this a large um, collection of strings that are installed during the daytime into this kind of large nest, as it may be, and then in the evening, as soon as it's gotten fully dark, the crowd can gather and it's a participatory experience of kind of that human knot game, but with
Oh,
an enormous field full of strings. So folks are given bricks where they can spool the string and try and in essence, take down the installation cooperatively together. But it's got lots of ritual to it. It's imbued with this sense of I think it's newly in this in this time of post shutdown and coming back together, to really have a moment to work together with strangers and be a part of this community kind of problem solving moment that is really, really special.
so almost like a folk game, like a large scale folk game, like the kind of thing you might play with like a couple of people, but done en masse.
Yeah. Again,
Wow.
like so where it takes on almost like a ritualistic experience. It's got lights and sounds and all the kind of things that really give you that sense of place and that moment to explore and communicate either verbally or non-verbally with the people around you to try to figure it out.
I'm so glad I kicked off with that one because like that is so up our alley here.
I think it's going to be a really, I mean, again, I have yet to experience it, but I'm very, every time I talk to the group, they're so intentional about the material and how it works and how it works with the environment around it, and really kind of making sure that the intentionality around it is really, really moving. So I can't wait.
Now that's a piece coming from a French company, and as you mentioned, a Korean-born French citizen creator that y'all are bringing over to San Diego. The next one I want to ask about is from San Diego's own Blind Spot Collective, and that's Black Seance. Now, Blind Spot's had work in the festival before. What's this one going to be?
So Black Seance, which is coming through Blind Spot Collective, and yes, they in 2019 did a piece that was set in a sprawling throughout a high school, actually, that's on the campus of Liberty Station. This is going to be much more contained and much more, I don't know, I mean, it is definitely made for an adult audience. The setting of this space is like they keep saying like a back alley New Orleans bar. So
Mm.
it's much smaller, much more intimate, and there is a bartender there, Francis, who is also an amateur magician, which there is like actually a lot of history in this kind of career path, I guess, from a time. And as an amateur musician, he actually maybe ends up becoming a channel for many of the Black American history heroes. And so the performer actually has, I want to say something like 25 different people that
Whoa.
he can channel. And so throughout each performance will be different. Each performance will have a different set of visitors, and then that will, of course, imbue it with a different story. So the audience is really going to be a part of that kind of seance moment of really kind of just talking about the stories that are so easily either swept under the rug or have been told by the wrong voices or through history books in a way that is meant to make the right or the wrong people feel really good about themselves. And so, but kind of having this really honest moment of just going through and how these ancestors have really also imbued our character, but also our history as any of us as Americans. So I think it'll be a really fun and kind of, I don't think scary, but perhaps spooky feeling, of kind of descending into a bar and into this more liminal world of history.
So things are being set up to like either you found or like evoke that speakeasy sense, and then it's just going to
Exactly.
be. And
So
how
you'll
about how many people? What's the audience size on this one? Not to tease you.
I believe we're at, like, I want to say 30 to 40
Okay,
people. So it's
all right.
small, intimate, but not like one at a time or
Yeah,
anything. It's
yeah.
like you want to feel like you're at a bar.
Okay.
It's definitely got that gathering.
Like a decent sized room, but not quite. Because once you started going down, I started thinking like, oh, there's a bit of like like a seance actually has about like 8 or 9 people like around a table type thing. So not quite that, but somewhere in the ballpark. So okay,
Yeah, I think that there's plenty of way to feel like you're still an audience member and not completely in the middle of creating the moment, if that makes sense.
gotcha. Um, this this piece is coming out of a San Diego based company. Uh, the other one coming from France. Talk to us a bit about the balance between local companies and the international visitors, which is always an interesting challenge in any year, but like right now made all the more complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should say, well, Blind Spot Collective is a local company. The piece itself was actually written and directed by Richard Allen, and starring Nathan Nonhoff. And they're actually two artists who live in LA, which is kind of, I mean, I feel like for us, we're starting to think of our corridor of region, like our LA, San Diego, Tijuana kind of region, to like really want to, because as you said, it is a balance for us. It's very important to the festival and to the Playhouse that we continue to invest and foster the local talent. And I think that there are artists who have stayed in San Diego or who have been interested in making this art because there's a place for it to go. And so really wanting to make sure that there's always space to honor that, and to see companies that, as year after year, their proposals or their ideas become more and more more strongly aligned with what we have all come to think of as WOW and what the WOW shows are. But then also knowing that it's important to then bring in the both national and international artists, so that the festival has a little bit of everything and continues to pull perspectives and audiences from outside of our region necessarily. So it is a balancing act, to say the least. And and we are especially as we look towards, and one of the blessings of moving to an annual festival is being able to have a little bit longer lead time with some projects, to say like, ooh, this project sounds great, but like maybe it needs a year and a half of development as opposed to 4 months to get up. And so we've been rethinking what that means as we calibrate towards the annual model. So we've got, we also are so lucky to be at the Arts District at Liberty Station, which comes with its own bevy of incredible artists that work there and that have studios there. We have a bunch of dance companies between John Malashok, who was a part of the last festival, and San Diego Ballet and San Diego Dance Theater, as well as Rosenbach, which is going to be a new company. So there's also something really lovely about hyper local at the venue, also having those kind of artists featured along with San Diego artists, and then U.S. artists, and then international artists. So it's a lot of fun playground to play in.
We'll stay on the international front for a second. Want to ask about a show from a company that some No Pro listeners might be familiar with. The company being Outside the March, who are, memory serves like they're up in Toronto. My brain sometimes doesn't work, so maybe I got that wrong. But this one is Lessons in Temperament. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit about that one.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Lessons in Temperament is just a really beautiful experience. It is set in front of a piano. It's actually quite simple as far as one might think of the land of, kind of Outside the March and wow. And this is the performer and the writer, James Smith, is a musician, and as a part of of like a day job side hustle, he learned how to tune pianos, and has found his own kind of philosophy and storytelling device in the process of tuning a piano. So the piece takes place in front of an untuned piano, and over the course of the piece, he tells the story of his family, which is full of neurodiversity and a lot of life challenges, and he's really got beautiful openness with how he discusses his own journey along with his brother's journey, and all the while he is tuning the piano. As you can imagine, there's a lot of metaphor involved in that, and at the end, you end up with wherever the story has landed, and it has changed since he started performing it, as his life has continued to change, and his family's life has continued to change, and so that it will then kind of conclude with a beautifully tuned piano and an incredible story. So it's really, really, it's one of the ones that stuck with me. One of the few ones that I was able to see in full because of a video of it, and it has stuck with me so deeply. So I'm really, really honored that he'll be here for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get a chance to see their work here. Like that's something I love about festivals, is you get to kind of be, if you're local or near local, because I'm in the corridor, as it were.
Yes.
You get to kind of be lazy and just like it comes to you, So like that's what I love about having WoW like right here, is just like, oh great, like I'll pop down for a day or two and catch as much as I can. Staying on music, but also staying on, friends of No Pro, Mr. and Mischief. That would be Andy and Jeff Crocker. Their Secret Identities. They're bringing a brand new piece. We are massive fans of the work they've done. They popped up Escape from Godot at the Hollywood Fringe years ago. It was an absolute revelation, and just been a massive fans ever since. They've got a brand new piece, 40 Watts from Nowhere, set in like a pirate radio station. What can you tell us about this one? Which would be enough for
Oh
me to
yeah.
like drag my carcass out of LA all on its own.
Yeah, this is a really, really fun one. They are such really remarkable creators. They actually have been working with a real life subject, Sue Carpenter, who has gifted them the ability to tell the story of her pirate radio station, which she ran out of her closet in her apartment in LA, I believe in Silver Lake. And so this actually transports the audience back to 1995, all of the amazing bells and whistles that come with it, and a closet full of music. And the audience members are given a chance to run the radio station as well as experience her story. There are a number of different ways that so the audience, I believe, is four, 4 to 5 people. I'm saying that out loud as I freeze. Very small, intimate audience, and they will be working together and to keep the radio station running, and also kind of interact with a number of different things in the apartment to experience really what it was like to be Sue, or one of her DJs that helped her out. It's an incredible story, and incredibly the best way to explore it is through the music. I did a little test play with them a couple weeks ago, and I just had permagrin. Like it just hits all the buttons. It's so much fun. I was like looking through songs and then thinking about her incredible bravery, because it was all pretty illegal. So it's a romp, as one would imagine from Mr. Mischief. In really their signature style.
Yeah, and romp's definitely an operative word when it comes to the Crockers' work. There's just like this massive sense of play and surprise, and um, I also think that something that's kind of nifty is, and thank God it's public now. Andy was off working on Galactic Star Cruiser for a long time, and
Oh,
what? Oh, you didn't? Did you not know that?
oh, I did know that.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's public now. For a second, your reaction, I was like, "Oh, wait, do you not know?" And it sort of fascinates me in kind of a how fun way, like that we have folks who are working on these really large scale, corporate projects, and who are also coming around and making original, intimate, interactive work, and that the dream is happening in real time when I look at this schedule you've put together. Um, when I look at the schedule you've put together, I see just like this a really broad collection. Without Walls has always been interesting because it feels like the critical thing has been in the name, right? That like it needs to be theater that doesn't obey the usual rules of theater somehow. Like it's site specific or site responsive. How big of a tent do you pitch here? What's the scope in terms of all the different flavors of not traditional proscenium theater that folks are going to
It,
find?
another one of our many things that we work on in the world of balance, I would say, because it's and constantly a question. When we're talking about projects or things we've seen, and saying like, okay, is this without walls? Is this in the WoW world? And like, I beyond just the it when you see it feeling, like I think that one of the ways we're really honing in is like no something that gives the audience something that challenges the perception of, kind of outside of our normal. Everybody's very familiar. You buy a ticket, you show up, especially if you're like a subscriber at the La Jolla Playhouse. You show up, you park, you get to the theater, you sit in your seat, maybe the same seat you sit in every time. The lights go down, the curtain comes up, you sit and you watch the show. And then that part is the surprising part. And I think for Without Walls, having the ability to find art that imbues every moment in some kind of an interest, or a little bit of discomfort, outside of the norm. I mean, we really do span from dance, music, contemporary art, street theater, to some of the more what we think of as site specific or immersive stuff, which is typically indoors, oftentimes limited in ticket numbers. So making sure that we're also serving audiences, like serving as diverse an audience as we're trying to present with artists as well. So really thinking about, okay, if you hate interaction, is there something for you at WoW? If you
Right.
if you want to
Yeah.
be if you want to be deep into it and you want to touch everything and you want to open every drawer, is there something for you? So, trying to find a really broad way that all of this art can appeal to folks. And, you never know then if you show up to see the cool, weird dance piece on the hub, and then maybe somebody gets you into a show where you're all of a sudden inside of it, and push people a little bit farther, and get that kind of open that sense of what we think of when we think of theater, which can feel a little stodgy. I don't think our theater feels stodgy, but if you don't get up there, then you don't you kind of stick in that world. So this is one that I hope, particularly for people who may not even buy a ticket, who may just be going to Trader Joe's or decided to go to Liberty Station to take a walk with their kids on a Saturday, and then all of a sudden they have a day full of art in front of them that they can appreciate without ever having to plan and without having to know in advance. So that's, I think, one of the facets that's really exciting to me. And then, of course, it's incredibly gratifying to have the boutique shows come to life, and like the difference between the Galactic Star Cruiser and what I like to refer to as our scrappy style here, to be able to kind of create these environments in a way that is theatrically interesting and also like has that festival feel that is kind of really special and different than, say, a sit down piece where they have the budget and the ability to run for 3 months and charge people $150 a head.
Yeah.
All of that has value, but this is, I feel like, is very special to kind of preserve.
Well, and one of the things, that I love about WoW is that ability to see that complete all those different layers of this world kind of stacked up on top of each other at once. So that, you turn a corner and, oh yeah, here's this like spectacle outdoor performance that's very, very strange coming out of Germany, and then head 2 blocks in the other direction, and you get this very meditative, um, you know, uh, traversal theatrical piece, or pop into a gallery. And I remember there was one piece, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was an absolutely beautiful piece in 2019 where the artist was, drawing on my arm and like wiping things away and like illustrating a story I was listening to. It was their
Yeah.
story I was listening to, and illustrating it on me in real time. And it was just beyond magical, and really, really moving. It was a refugee story, and like as I started that, I pulled my sleeve back as I was telling you that, because like the
Yeah,
story's still in my body, right?
that's amazing.
Right, like that memory is still really there, and so that WoW can be like such a canvas for this. And I think the thing that I'm maybe hoping for the most is to not only for the folks who are here in the region to come down and check it out, but because it's a 3-day run, I hope maybe some of the stuff can find live beyond. How do you see the festival's role in, as like a marketplace, or as like somewhere like something that can seed this kind of work or help cultivate this kind of work beyond even the bounds of the festival itself?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's always part of the dream, and I believe there have been a couple of festival pieces that have found brief life outside of the festival. But certainly for us, I think a major goal is to have this work, because 4 days is so short, and some of the pieces only perform on the weekend, so then there's just 2 days, and that ephemeral magic, gives you something, but obviously we want it to grow or to find life or to be experienced around the country and around the world. And we're always talking to our contemporaries in the other. I think there are a lot of now other regional theaters, other commercial interests, that this festival, this idea of this kind of work, which is very common. They spend all summer in every city in Europe, having
Mhm.
festivals that celebrate this kind of work, and groups come in from different countries and do their piece, and then it travels and they create these little tours, and we're really working with the other players in this game to be better connected. I was talking to one of the curators of Under the Radar, and how siloed I feel like in the US sometimes we can be, so much so that all of our festivals happen pretty far apart in dates, and it's like, well, maybe we should think about that, because we could be creating a more cohesive and an environment that kind of sets the work up to be able to continue. Because I do think that one of the challenges is just getting through the festival is a huge labor for particularly some of the like local companies that sometimes are run by one or two people.
Yeah.
And so then to have the energy and ability and availability to then try to market it and push it out or develop it or, hustle and get to whatever APAP or whatever thing, it's just, there's not a nice bridge there. So really, as an institution wanting to help figure out a way to give life beyond the WoW Festival, and foster those and bring in those collaborators and those curators to make sure they're seeing what's happening here, so that we can be a little more mindful, as a cultural institution, in the country to really open up those opportunities.
Yeah. Well, and it's something, particularly on the West Coast here, like something that's always kind of boggled my mind is, there's an opportunity to create a circuit on the West
Mm-hmm.
Coast and this is even back when I wasn't focused on, immersive or interactive theater, just like theater in general, and that it everyone still kind of remains siloed in their different regions, and yet we've got, in theory, you could just put things on I-5 and drive it up the coast. It's like it's not
Absolutely, and
right.
it's not. My very personal internal experience is it's certainly not like commercially. It's not like we're like anybody's worried that there's overlap in audience or that having it somewhere else is going to devalue it here.
Oh,
It's
there's so little saturation. Like it's
Yeah,
barely.
no, it's truly just, I think everybody's operating at like 110%. So like
Hmm.
getting and bridging that gap once you set it up, it actually is going to alleviate a lot of that. I mean, it certainly can help budgetarily, but just like so many things can become a lot more achievable if we start to spread out those resources a little bit more. But it's that building that bridge that it requires a whole apparatus.
Yeah. Well, and something that'll help make that a possibility is if we get everyone listening who is within range of San Diego to come through to WoW and check out the work. There will be something for you there. I can pretty much guarantee it. So
Yes,
if you're within the
come on
sound,
down.
if you're in the sound of my voice and anywhere in the corridor, make your way that weekend.
Arizona too. You're not far.
No, not that far at all.
Vegas.
Yeah, swing through.
Swing through. Come on over.
Amy, it's so great to be able to talk to you about this on the show, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm so happy to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Siobhan O Lougjhlin.
Hey, Noah.
It's been almost a year since we had you on the show.
It has been almost a year. It was last summer, I think, that I got to talk to you on this podcast.
Yeah, that was episode 299. So it was right before we were shifted the format for the summer. Now we're kind of halfway between the new format and the old format, but this will be like it's been a minute. It's been a while.
We're often between formats,
Yes.
Noah. It's a formatting
Yeah,
structure.
I get it.
Life.
Exactly. You had a show last summer. We'll get into the fact that it went away for a bit. Because I think everyone can figure out what happened. We can get the details if we want. But before we do any of that, the show is called Every Day I'll Hope. And it was the thing you were about to do the last time we had you on the show. So tell us about the show again. And then talk to us a little bit about what you learned in the first run. How about that?
Absolutely. So the piece is it's a solo performance in a voiceover booth in Studio City for an audience of 4 people at a time. And it's about a character I created called, her name is Bambi, and she is an e-girl Twitch TikTok star with a serious case of imposter syndrome. She all she wants to do is break out of her current monotony to become an audiobook producer, as opposed to a sort of someone who's beholden to the social media grind, as it were. She sometimes identifies as a kitten avoiding capitalism. but she's not very good at avoiding the capitalism. So she, her way of sort of having a sense of power and control in her life is to write, direct, engineer, and produce her first audiobook with a cast of 4 people, which is the audience. So the audience comes in and they're seated by the usher, who then goes to get the engineer, which is, someone who, listen, I'm a voice actor. I've been in the industry for, 7 years. This character does not look like any audio engineer I have ever encountered. So it's a fun sort of reveal to kind of bring her in. And because, as I mentioned, she has imposter syndrome, the truth of the matter is that she actually hasn't written a damn thing. So she's scrambling to sort of devise this piece with the audience while telling her story and also soliciting experiences from the audience to contribute to her book, which she hopes to be a fantasy novel, like some of the worlds that she loves to escape to.
I got to experience the show. It all comes together, like actually in a way that's kind of like surprising. And for those of us who know your online work, it's interesting because like I've seen some of your online work, and I've seen the show you toured around the country, Broken Bone Bathtub, at one of the beginning of I think the long touring process, and this is definitely in between I think those two poles. So, what did you learn from those two shows that led you to the format you've got here, where you've got something that feels, there's some distance and some performative and there's some technical, stuff going on, whereas in Broken Bone Bathtub, it's just you in a bathtub. But there's also a lot of, kind of story pulling and thread pulling out of the audience, which is a lot of what made Broken Bone Bathtub so incredible on that run.
Thank you. Thanks, Noah. It's interesting. It does feel like a hybrid or a merging of the two projects. And, Broken Bone, actually everything that I do is sort of out of necessity or out of just the whatever tools I have at the time. So when I was wanting to move to an in-person production last year, when everything was kind of opening back up, I thought I was trying to think of what kind of spaces I even had access to here in LA. And as I mentioned before, being a voice actor, I'm friends with Andrew Feliciano, who owns Voice Tracks West. And I was like, hey man, can I like make a show in your booth? And he's like, what's the show? And I said, can I just come see it? I don't know. I just want to try something. And so really, as with Broken Bone, it's a story about my bike accident and how I was truly borrowing bathtubs from friends. And then Please Don't Touch was like, well, okay, I guess all of my Broken Bone performances are canceled, so I guess I'll try to figure out something, online. This Everyday I'll Hope is similar in its form, and I sort of move backwards where I say, okay, the medium is going to be this space, either the bathtub, the Zoom squares, or the voiceover booth. So then what's the narrative? Who's the character? Who am I? And most importantly, why in this space? Who's the audience in this space? What's the reason, right, for that? And so and when I thought about, voiceover, and the most fun parts of voiceover obviously are animation and audiobooks. And characters and audiobooks that have lots of actors in them are good fun, really, right? The ones that are like highly produced. And at first, when I thought about sort of using this audiobook narrative, I was like, oh, maybe it would be fun to like give the audience assignments beforehand, like of who their character is. So they'll come in kind of as that character or having thought about that character. But when I thought about my work with Please Don't Touch, as well as with Broken Bone Bathtub, I thought, I think actually what I do best is encourage people to be themselves. And there are lots of different kinds of immersive experiences that encourage you to really step outside of yourself or to become someone else or to contribute to someone else, to listen to someone else. And I think what I do is specifically is about is focused in our genuine vulnerability and our humanity that allows us to speak so that we can also listen to each other. So this sort of co-storytelling that you're talking about that happens inside of Everydale Hope is intentional. It's me thinking about how I can use this voiceover space and this kind of audio experience to create the kind of intimacy that I created with Broken Bone Bathtub in a tiny little bathroom, and with Please Don't Touch in a different way.
You had the truncated run in 2021. Was there anything you learned on that run that's caused you to like make some modifications this time? Or?
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about the technical elements. What was really nice about doing this was the challenge of I learned a lot doing Please Don't Touch, still doing Please Don't Touch, about camera work and technical work and running my own lights, as I do. And now in Everydale Hope, I run my own lights. I run my soundboard, and I am engineering the show, truly. So the audience actually forgets, if I'm quite sneaky, if I'm doing a really good job, they forget that they are actually being recorded, even though they consent to being recorded when they go in. And so,
like at a certain point, they just assume that that's a gag, even though they've signed away.
Yeah.
So you really are being recorded. It's like, no, clearly we're not. And then you find out, no, you were.
Which was advice from the Speakeasy Society. Actually, they were like, people in LA could be really intense about am I in a booth and you're recording my precious voice? So I'm like, you are consenting to me recording your voice. I will throw this audio away. I can't keep it. But it's for the purpose of the show. So I think a few things I ultimately feel that I've learned about what is special about creating a very specific audio experience. I mean, I try to make it as visual as I can with my lights and with Bambi herself. She's certainly the most visual character I've made. I mean, my first time really performing in person as a character in my solo work, although she is, of course, one exaggerated version of myself. But really leaning into this is also the first piece where I have a full score. The entire performance is composed by my brother, is underscored. And I worked hard for the first time in kind of helping sort of make this an audio, something that is pleasant for the ears, and exploring how that pleasant space in your head allows you to be vulnerable, because it's just kind of in your head, If you take the headphones off, you can't hear Bambi anymore. You're literally in a soundproof booth. So I learned a lot about what that kind of, a different kind of intimacy, one where, unlike Broken Bone, where you're literally touching me, you're not close to me at all, but I'm so I can whisper to you, and I can turn my mic off and I can scream really loud, and that doesn't hurt your ears or get really weird. And so it's allowed me to really think about how to explore that particular experience that is also in person, right? That's not a recording I'm sending you or something happening remotely. It's really, it's kind of circular in that way of the giving and receiving.
So the show's coming back. You got hit by Delta, and then Omicron decided to hang around afterwards. And I don't know anything about the pandemic messing up scheduling on events, but
no, you've never had that kind of trauma.
Not
Let me
once.
tell you all about it. It was so terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of us got hit, Noah.
Yeah.
Some of us.
Some. But you're back now. You're back.
Yeah. So we're doing just right now, I think maybe just for the month of April. It's so hard to plan these things. And honestly, if anyone else relates, putting tickets online feels vulnerable now in a way that it didn't before, because the experience of having to cancel is just, even when it's not quote unquote your fault, sometimes I blame myself. It's still really hard, right? It's what if something comes? Part of me was what if people, there's a war happening. So it's possible that people don't want to spend the gas money to get to Studio City to see me by April. I actually was trying to open in March, but Omicron was so stressful that I did push it back even just another month out of anxiety.
Yeah.
So we're opening the 8th through the 23rd right now, and there's 7 p.m.s and 9 p.m.s on Fridays and Saturdays. When there are Sundays, we've got a 2 and 4, so some matinee experiences if people fancy a matinee. We do have a parking garage that is free. So you don't have to stress about parking at Voice Tracks West, which is really nice. You can even park your car at Voice Tracks and then walk to get a cocktail, and I can tell you where to go. So there's just
Make a little night of it.
yeah, you could do that if you fancy. And so we it's interesting. I living in New York for so long, and then coming to LA during a pandemic experience. And, Noah, you and I were talking about how hard it is to sort of, I think more than ever, like people anyway, we're hella busy. There's so much going on, and kind of finding my way into sort of the LA community is something that I really want to do. And I've found often the best way to do that is to share your work. And so, I'm excited for the chance to get to do that again.
All right. Siobhan, Every Day I Hope, Every Day I'll Hope, 8th through the 23rd on the weekends there in Studio City. And for those who are hearing this and who haven't checked it out last time, give it a whirl. It's good.
Noah, thanks again, as always, for having me and for sharing your space with all of us creators, big and small. I really, as a small one, I appreciate your advocacy and your friendship. Thank you.
And that's the show this week. I want to thank Amy and Siobhan for being our guests, and of course, Kathryn for delivering the news. We've got a busy month ahead of us here at No Proscenium. Of course, the book club is in effect, and we're reading Laura Hall's Planning Your Escape. The meeting of the book club is going to happen in our Discord on the 12th. We have a couple of AMAs that we're lining up, including one with the creative team from Thicket. And there'll be, of course, a bunch of reviews and maybe a couple of features happening this month as well, kicking things off as we move into a deeper part of spring. And yes, we're starting to look at some of the in-person events as well, have a couple of announcements in the next few weeks of some exciting stuff happening in more than one city. What? Yeah, that's right. More than one city this time out. So keep your eyes on our feeds for all of that. All right. Let's thank the people who help us do this show. That would be our sustaining backers. They generously support us at patreon.com/noproscenium. Indeed, that is still I laugh because it's our only source of income, and that terrifies me. So patreon.com/noproscenium. Thank you to everyone who provides us with sustenance. Our sustaining backers are Ari Herstand, Chris Woolman, Eric Shamlin, Deborah Robinson, Elaine, Jay Bushman, Jerome Joseph Genties, David Bassick, Lonnie Hands-On, Mark Baltazar, Sydney Guillory, and Jan Budman. Thank you all so much. That's it for this week. Plenty to come. This is a shockingly short episode, given that we had two really good interviews. So sometimes it just goes by like that. Next week on the show, going to have some more fun for you. I got to visit in person with some of the team behind Supernatural, the VR exercise software programming service plan, everything that I enjoy so much. Got to talk with both Leanne and Johnny, who we've had on the show before, but who I never met in person. So very much a lot of fun that's coming up. It's a good conversation. And I can't wait till you hear it. And we've got a couple other things in the planning cycle and a few other things already in the can. So yeah, gonna be a nice little April here. Happy April, everybody. Rabbit. Until next time, I'll see you at the show. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to do the actual credits. I was all ready to go. I'm leaving that in. The associate producer for No Proscenium is Parker Sella. The music for No Proscenium is by Chris Porter of the Speakeasy Society. Special thanks to Siobhan O Lougjhlin for voicing our intro. Kathryn Yu does our headlines and is the executive editor here at No Pro. And this podcast and everything that's wrong with it is my fault. I'm Noah Nelson. And until next time, that's what happens. Thank you for wearing the mask.